Welcome back to the Palouse Playbook. We got another special guest back here for another good time. You know him, but first, the intro.
If you're interested in being great, you better look hard into Washington State. You want to be great? Go to Washington State, baby.
Oh, man, I made that intro myself, but I still love it every single time. So many good players that we got in there. But speaking of good players in here, we got Luke from Win or Lose Pod in here to talk some Cougs football. Man, we're so fired up for this year. I know you and I have been going back and forth on Twitter just with everything, and obviously we connect every couple of weeks just talking Cougs in general. But Luke, thanks for jumping back in. Thanks for talking some Cougs football.
Of course, man, dude. I'm stoked to be here. And every time I come on, your intro, I love it. I gotta upgrade my intro game. The Gruden gets me fired up. We gotta get Gruden out to Pullman for a game. I thought there was when Jimmy left, I thought there was a chance he was maybe going to come up here and coach. But awesome intro, and love seeing all those guys. It gets me fired up for football season.
Oh, Gruden's 100% my guy. Like, that's the guy that him and Pat McAfee, those guys get me fired up. I know there's been some discourse between Pat McAfee and the Cougs once upon a time, but I promise you, Pat's a good guy.
Yeah,
he does his thing. He'll get you fired up for football season. We got that right around the corner, September 6th. If you don't have it circled on your calendar, what are you doing with your life? We got such a huge game happening on a Sunday. That's going to be such a fun time. But I wanted to talk about something before we get to that game, and that's this quarterback battle. What a beautiful battle we got. I love the fact that Kirby Moore came out and said, we're going to tell you exactly what's going to happen this year. We want our guys to compete. We want the next couple of weeks to evaluate all the guys that we have. On the 24th, we're going to have an answer for you. He gave the media everything that you needed to give, but not only the media, he gave the fans everything that they needed to do. They want still some time to see those guys battle in the fall, and then to make that accurate evaluation going into the season with enough time for you to react on it. It's a whole lot different story than last year. So, Luke, I wanted to kick it over to you. This quarterback battle, Kirby Moore setting the tone with the 24th. What are your thoughts?
I think you hit the nail on the head with just setting the tone. And you mentioned showing the fans, but how about showing the players? I mean, at the beginning of the last season, they barely scraped by Idaho. I think some of that is kind of just an unpreparedness generally to play. And then all of a sudden, Zevi's having to step in the Apple Cup. And, he plays a pretty good football game, but he got thrown in there. And now whoever the starter is going to be walking out in Husky Stadium, they're going to know they're the starter. They're going to be mentally prepared for it. And I think that really is going to help not only the quarterback, but the rest of the team, and say, hey, we're going to rally behind this guy, especially that week leading up to the game, and just saying, hey, like, this is our guy. We've seen he's earned it. We've worked through camp. And I think there's a real important human mentality element that people don't really talk about with the quarterbacks a lot. And so I think Kirby Moore did an amazing job saying, you know what, we're going to set this date and we're going to announce this. And, maybe we shouldn't be giving him too much credit. Maybe we should be giving the predecessor on credit, or saying maybe he did something wrong. But I think it's awesome that, they have a set date, and we have in our mind something we can work towards is, hey, this is when they're going to announce the guy.
Yeah, 100%. He set the tone with us as fans, but even better yet, he's setting a good culture. And this is the most, maybe you have a different opinion on this. This is the most transparency I've had into the Cougs football program. We're getting so much stuff behind the scenes. Not only, yes, I'm getting to talk to some of these players in an interview, and maybe you have, been able to talk to some of these players behind the scenes as well. Besides that, Kirby Moore has set the tone from saying, hey, I want you to know what we got going on because I want you to be invested into this program. He is not only setting the tone with his players, he's saying, this is Coug football. This is Washington State. I'm an Eastern Washington guy. He is coming from all different angles to make sure that this football program is going in the right direction. And I love that. He hasn't even coached a single game. I say that every podcast, but I'm going to say it again. He hasn't coached a single game, but what he's done in this short amount of time has proven that he is deserved to be this head coach, and that he is creating a culture with these great players that we got in the portal, that the great players he was able to retain. Before we talk, I know we took a little sidebar from the quarterbacks there, but I wanted to get your thoughts really quick on just Kirby Moore and setting the tone with just everything. Have you ever seen anything more transparent than what we're seeing right now in Cougar football?
No, I actually commented this on somebody's post the other day. It was WSU footballs. Like they posted a video of him mic'd up at practice and stuff. And I was like, I really don't know if, I haven't seen him coach yet, like you just said. And so, all of that remains to be seen. But the guy is just born to lead a football program from top down. And I think that's what we've been missing with the last, couple people we had in here, is that running a college football program, especially now with everything that goes into it, is so much about, there obviously the football, the X's and O's, the Jimmys and Joes, all of that matters, but there's so much, external things that go into it. And he's clearly a master of those things. And that's been clear from the moment he got on campus. He was able to retain all the players who weren't his. The fundraising's been great. And leaving the practices open and having it be super transparent, I think it's just getting people excited in a way that I don't feel like people have been excited about Cougar football, since the Pac-12 fell apart. And I think people are really, there's an energy that he's building. And I think he understands the importance of that, because he understands the importance of getting the fan support, having the fans be engaged, having the fans donate. He seems to understand that more than, many of the head coaches that we've had in recent years.
Yeah. In what, 8 months, 9 months that he's been here, he's finding deep roots into this program, the Alumni Association, the alumni, all of us that have gone to Wazoo, all of us that have invested any sort of time into this Cougar football program. He is finding them. And he's doing a really good job of that. I love what the tone has been set, and every player that I've been blessed to talk to has mentioned that. He's not a yeller. He's a guy that's going to get you from point A to point B in your career. And he's going to, lift you up when you're down. He's going to, set the record straight when it needs to be, set. So I love what he's doing. I know there's a little sidebar, but I've just never seen this much transparency. Now, I know once upon a time with Mike Leach, we were on college's version of Hard Knocks for that season. I think it was with Gardner Minshew. I might be wrong on that. Yeah. But we got a good transparency there. We got to see Mike Leach, let it fly with some F-bombs. That was fun. But we, and that I will always go back to that now that, Coach Leach is passed on. That's now probably one of the best things that you'll ever see, is that in between. But getting that from Coach Moore at this level, and just within his first 9 months that he's been here, awesome. Can't speak more highly of the guy. Can't speak more highly of what he's doing with this program. But back to the main topic, this quarterback battle. It's truly a battle. Are you excited about this battle? Or talk to me a little bit about what you think on this battle. Who's kind of winning? Who's leading it? Or who's I guess neck and neck? Or are all three still in it?
I think all three of them are still in it. I think it'd be unfair to say one of them wasn't, because I don't think anyone's really, separated themselves from the pack. And I guess my hope is, not having a dog in the race, just wanting the best Cougar quarterback to be out there, is that somebody does separate themselves, and not to the chagrin of the other two, but to the, hey, this is going to be our guy. This one's going to be the person who makes us explosive. And that's something that I talked about with Greg when I had him on my podcast this week, is just they haven't been able to have an explosive offense yet. And a lot of that has to do with a million factors that we've talked about. The defense knows your playbook. They're practicing against you every day. There's no surprise factor. They know your play styles. They know your tendencies. It's just so much harder for the offense in this camp. That's, so much of football is about the chess match of it. And so that kind of remains to be seen. I honestly wish we could do like what the NFL does with like a little like scrimmage, like go play Eastern or something. I just want to see Pinnick drop like 400 yards and just get him some confidence and some juices going. But I think as we go on here, over these next, couple weeks, the main thing I want to see is who has the most control of the offense, because I think ultimately we have a lot of really talented skill position players. We have a lot of really talented defensive players, which I know we're going to get to. But I think the key for whoever the quarterback of this team ends up being is you just have to have control of the offense. Let's limit the turnovers and take advantage of that big opportunity when it comes to you.
Yeah, and I have to agree that all three guys are still in it. And I get the feeling that it's still a brotherhood. No matter who ends up winning the job, I think all three are going to be loving of whoever is and be that true, not cheerleader is not the right word, but like I always think of the moment when Jalen Hurts came out of the game, Tua Tagovailoa came in, and what he did for Tua, being on the bench, helping him, mentoring him, all that other stuff that kind of goes along with just being a great teammate. I think we have three really good guys that are going to be doing that, and there's probably some other quarterbacks that I'm not mentioning that are also in at least the conversation of being good teammates, if not more than that. But between Duggar, Eshelman, and Pinnick, those are the three names that have been risen to the top, and who we're talking about, kind of moving forward with everything. But whoever makes the August 24th cut and gets that call, I think you're going to have three really good guys that are going to be great teammates and just chomping at the bit for when they get their opportunity. But what I love is I think all of them have each other's backs, but all of them have their heads down trying to win a job. And I think there's nobody more dangerous than three guys trying to do that right now that have that brotherhood, but also their heads are down. They're ready. They're focused. Have you seen a little bit of the same thing, or, is there anything that you have seen from some of these quarterbacks that has really wowed you?
I think I would say, kind of going back to before what I said before, it hasn't been explosive yet. It hasn't wowed me. And what I saw from Pinnick in the spring game was the most eye-opening, because I don't think I really considered his athleticism as much. And seeing how mobile his was, you could see the ceiling of that. And I think that's kind of the theme of this team a lot, is what their ceiling is. I think there's a lot of potential there that obviously we're not going to know until they step onto the real field in the real games. But I think with Pinnick, and the reason that I think he'll probably end up being the starter, if I had to bet on it, is because his ceiling as an athlete is probably higher than the other two, and he also has the experience advantage. But I think it's important to note that Eshelman is a really, really talented passer, and Duggar's come a long way as a passer. And I think both of those players still have a role on this team, even if they're not the starter, especially Duggar with his athleticism. Fresno State last year, their backup quarterback, they turned him into a receiver. He's going to be one of their top three receivers coming into this season. And, I don't think Duggar needs to make a position change, but yeah, I think fans have talked about this, the John Mateer, Cam Ward packages and that kind of stuff. I think there's absolutely a role for Duggar and even Eshelman, even if they're not named the starting quarterback.
I had the same, we talked about that last year when it was Zeviak House. And then Duggar finally got a couple snaps, and I was like, hey, listen, we just had a Cam Ward, John Mateer in the same backfield. We have both those guys in the same backfield when John Mateer, I believe, was a redshirt freshman. He might have been a true freshman at the time. Holy smokes. And now you look at both of those guys and where they're at right now, you could be looking at something very similar. Now, granted, our backfield is already incredible. And it's stacked, but I promise you, if you have athleticism, you use athleticism.
Yes.
If you have somebody that you can, toss out there and then him drop back and make a pass, well, Julian Duggar's now also passing the ball, and he has that capability to throw it down the field. You have so many plays that you can also add into your repertoire if you go that route. And I loved what they did with the Cam Ward and John Mateer. I keep going back to, I love Taysom Hill and what he does at the next level. And can you see some of that? I saw that with John Mateer. If he doesn't make it as a quarterback, there's a Taysom Hill style of play for his career. Yeah. And when you see Julian Duggar and you see some of these guys in the backfield, there's just so much to love. I did want to kind of wrap it up because we have been talking about quarterbacks a whole lot here. Wanted to kind of switch over. We have some really good, it's not a huge freshman class, but noticeably we have a good incoming freshman class. I wanted to talk to you and get some names. What are your thoughts on maybe some guys that might, break the barrier this year?
I think having a freshman class in today's college football that's as talented as this one is so important, because we know the reality of the portal and all that stuff, and you're going to end up losing guys and have to fill in things. So if you have really good freshmen who, are fighting for playing time and they get this experience in a really competitive fall camp that I love that they've created, where it's everybody's fighting for a position, everybody's getting better. And I think that's really, really cool to see. A name I keep hearing is Isaiah Hung, because I think he's one of the best athletes on the team is what I've heard. And I think he just seems like he's in the mix. You mentioned BG before we started recording. I know he's not technically a younger guy. He's been looking to break out. But, some of these guys who have maybe been a little unheralded, maybe not people are paying attention to. But I think it's awesome what Kirby Moore has done. We've talked about the mix of experience and youth. And I think the youth competing with the experience makes the youth so much better. And that's what so many athletes lose in this portal era, where they just leave to get more playing time. And so I think all of these young athletes competing against the more experienced guys just creates more depth that I don't think WSU's had in a long time.
Well, you mentioned BG, and I still have the video from the last one. I got to throw it up there. Check this out. Now, that's from the Wazoo. That's not my video. That is from Wazoo. Just for anybody out there trying to stump me or anything like that, I promise you, that's not my video. That is Washington State's video. They did a phenomenal job. I want to give them credit. That's not my video. That's not my video. That's not my video. I'm just saying. But BG, man, is he primed for that breakout season? Is this the year that he kind of separates himself from years past?
You know, I hope so. It was super interesting. Greg and Jamie talked about it on their podcast, just that, you know, it's a more loaded wide receiver room. So there's going to be theoretically less opportunity because there's a lot more guys they want to get involved. Darius Clemens, Tank Hawkins, all these guys they brought in, obviously Tony Freeman returning. But I mean, I think absolutely. I think he's a really polished receiver. I think he showed flashes of it last year. And I think he is primed to have a bigger role. And I think, you know, football is a war of attrition. And I think he's going to get his opportunity when that moment comes. And I think that's what's really, you know, tantalizing about the prospects of the team is the depth that they have. And guys like BG who, you know, if one of those, you know, if the Tank Hawkins situation doesn't work out that in the way that the Kirby Moore coaching staff dreamed it did, they got a guy like BG waiting there who's been working his ass off to be ready to come in. And like you saw, that's not an easy catch. That's not an easy catch contested like that. And so I think he could absolutely make an impact. And I love stories like that. I think they're super Washington State.
Yeah, and just to kind of double tap on a little bit of the quarterback talk that we had, I love the fact that they're starting. They went deep ball on day 2, and they were really starting to pound that in. And it looks like they might start factoring that in. I think they recognize what the problem or maybe potential issue was, that they weren't able to attack the deep ball game, and that they really want to attack that in this fall camp, getting ready for the next season. And I love that. I love that they made it day 2. And Kirby Moore was noted saying the progression from day 2 to day 3. He was like, love what the guys were doing. We were overthrowing guys on that first day of deep ball, and now we're starting to hit the guys a little bit better. I love the progression. I love that he gave that shout out, because you're seeing progression from day 1 to day 2. And
100%.
If that's what we're going to see over this fall, you're going to see guys like BG that have that 50-50 contested style of catching, maybe make a turn a corner and everything. One other player, there's plenty of other players between Trey Hill, CJ Toney, Marquez Wimberly, a lot of good running backs. This is a crowded running back class. They're fighting just to be the best freshman running back.
I know, it's crazy.
It's crazy. This running back group is going to, if we get these guys for the next 4 or 5 years, like we think we should, this is going to be a huge running back class for the next 4 or 5 years. One of the other names I really liked is kind of a late addition. Oliver Bender. He is Nolensville High School, Nolensville, Tennessee, listed at 6'4", 170, 3-star, 85 overall on 247. Again, he's a true freshman. I don't know how much playing time he's going to get, whether they're going to try and throw him into special teams, what his role is going to be. But I think if he gets early opportunities, he might be the kid that progresses his freshman year and become something over the course of the year. Or if he gets opportunities early, maybe, he's the freshman, so nobody's covering him. Maybe he's the guy that ends up getting, more open than Darius Clemens, because everybody knows who Darius Clemens is, Tank Hawkins, T Free, all the other guys. So were there any other freshmen that you wanted to talk about?
No, it's funny you mentioned Bender. I actually saw him on his recruiting visit at the airport, Pullman Airport. I was flying home from visiting my buddies, and I saw him. I was like, this is definitely a recruit. So I started Googling him, and I was like, that's Oliver Bender. No, I don't have anyone else on that front. Oh, Lance McGee is another one that obviously everyone is super interested in. Just a freak athlete, huge get for Kirby Moore. They've made him a full-time linebacker. And, some of those guys, I mentioned Isaiah Hung. I mean, there's going to be some youth movement on the defense to mix in with the experience, especially in the linebacking core. So he's a guy you have to keep your eye out for.
Yeah, Lance McGee, I'm so fired up. He's around such great talent, whether he was sticking in at running back or hanging out with the linebackers, Keith Brown, Nylan Brown, Kirby Voorhees, Leopold Lassie, Maxwell Woods. He's got so many good veterans ahead of him that are going to mentor him and take him and take him under the wing. When I was talking with Isaiah Hung, he mentioned that as well. He's like, yeah, I want to pass the torch on to these guys, that are coming in and everything. So Lance McGee, cannot get through an episode without talking about him. Love it. And then, I wanted to mention one other name before we move on. Nick Nora. He was a late addition, July. I was on this guy. I had a top 50 uncommitted players list in December. He was number one for me. He was out of Bellevue High School, played D-back, played wide receiver. I saw some of his film and I was like, you got to get this kid. No one's talking about him. He was my number one uncommitted player. Ended up growing a little bit of a connection over Twitter and everything. I told him, I was like, hey, I don't know the coaching staff that well. I would love to, help you out, but I'll retweet anything you do. And we got him. We actually got him in July. He ended up committing to Wazoo. He's not on the roster yet. So I assume that some of these incoming freshmen that are red shirts or, the walk-ons may not get that opportunity to be on the roster until a little bit later. But this is another kid I wanted to mention. I think he's going to do well, whether he sticks it at wide receiver or DB. I thought his potential really was at DB, but wanted to give him a shout as well. But back to you. I wanted to get your thoughts. The rest of this camp, what would you like to see? What are things that are going on? What are your thoughts for the rest of this camp?
I mean, I think what's been proven is that the defensive line is going to cause problems. Zunk, McLean, Beatty, Paul Hudson, those guys are a problem. And the way Trent Bray, utilizes them is a problem. And it's been a problem for the offensive line. I'd love to have one day where Greg writes, the quarterbacks just killed it today. The quarterback just absolutely torched the defense. I'd love to see him put up some yards. I don't want to just have it be, they hit one deep ball today, or it's starting to, and I think from what I just read Greg's article before we started this about what they were doing at practice today, and it sounds like a little bit more comfortable today, stepping up in the pocket, making those throws. And so I think it's, it's so easy. I feel like fans all the time want somebody to just hit the ground running. And, Pinnick's in a new place. Eshelman's returning, but he's a young guy. And I just love to see them, really find their footing as the camp goes on and really just take control as emotional and vocal leaders, which I think it's so important for the quarterbacks to be. So hopefully what we hear coming out of Pullman is that these guys start just ripping it. Not that they've been, bad or poor or anything, but I'd love for them to just start firing on all cylinders. I think that would get both the team and the fans really excited about the Apple Cup.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think this defense, we know they're good. We saw this defense, and honestly, they're underrated. No one's talking about how good this defense is, and I'm okay with that. I think the Coug mentality is always to have a chip on your shoulder. I think the Coug mentality is always be underrated, not talked about, little brother, whatever you want to call it. I'm okay with it. Please underrate us. I think CBS came out with their 138 teams. We were ranked 88th. Fine. Put us at 138. I don't care. We're going to prove you where we need to be by, I think week 5, week 6, we're going to prove exactly who we are. And I think the quarterback situation too. I think if you don't see what you like out of game 1, don't fret. That's a big game. I know we want to win that game. I think we all want that game more than anything else in the season. But if you don't see what you want to see from the quarterbacks in game 1 or week 1, table it. These guys are going to learn. These guys are professionals at the college level. They're going to continue to grow, and they got good coaching around them that's going to get there. But Luke, I wanted to kick it over to you. Where can everybody find you, man?
Win or Lose Pod on Twitter. Coug Center, you can find my writings there. We're doing a Pac-12 preview series going through all of the opponents that the Cougs are going to face. We're on San Diego State this week. You just released a pod with some of the guys down there, just kind of previewing their season. But just before we get out of here, I did kind of want to mention, because you mentioned the Apple Cup in the quarterbacks playing. And I think it is fair to point out, I mean, UW is a really strong defense. They have a really good defensive coordinator. They're overturning their whole defensive line, strong linebackers. That's a game where I think the defense can make a huge impact. UW's going to be without all of their returning production pretty much. No Denzel Boston, no Jonah Coleman, no Adam Muhammad, no Vines Bright. Like, they're overturning a lot of production. So I think you can win that game without necessarily an amazing quarterback game. And I think the path for WSU's victory in that game is, hey, we're gonna get after Damon and we're gonna force him to make some rough passes. But I think where the defense will really make its hay is in Pac-12 play. We saw what they did to San Diego State last year. We saw what they did to Colorado State, and it's not a strong quarterback conference as a whole. And so I think that the defensive line is going to cause and wreak havoc in the Pac-12. And I think that's really where they're going to make their mark. Just wanted to get that take in before.
No, I appreciate you stopping the show to get that in because Luke, we're going to have you back on that week, or maybe we have to do a home and home that week to talk about UW and what we're so excited about. And if you're out there listening, trust me, we are so fired up for this season. September 6th is right around the corner. It is less than 30 days.
24 days.
We are 24 days out from a new era. And we're going to don this episode, a new era. This is really a new era. We got a brand new staff. We're getting fired up. If you're not fired up, I don't know what you're doing with your life, but make sure to go over to Luke. Luke's got some great people that he jumps on with him as well. From time to time, I've been over there as well. Luke does a phenomenal job of talking Coug football and honestly talking all Coug sports. So if you like, talking Coug baseball, who, just won the Mountain West, that's going to be history, by the way. And then also Coug football, Coug basketball, all of it. Make sure to head over to Win or Lose Pod. Make sure to check out Luke is I can't talk tonight. Make sure to check out Luke on Twitter as well. And for the Palouse Playbook, that's Luke. I'm Gavin. And just remember, life's too short. Gas up your boys.